Look, the Seahawks had the best point differential in the league by 20, almost 20 points. And that was against the fourth best schedule in the league, the fourth toughest schedule. You guys were third in point differential, but that was against the worst schedule in the league, or easiest schedule in the league, and really one of the easiest in NFL history. And they demolished a good San Francisco team. We get it. They were banged up and everything, but Purdy, McCaffrey were there. They had played them tough in the regular season. And then they handled a very good Rams team. All right. You guys struggled with a Denver team quarterbacked by its backup. And so I think people looking at it, strength of schedule, blowouts throughout the year as far as quality of teams and things like that, are justified in saying, I think Seattle has an advantage here, and I think they can win this game by more than 4 points or 5 points. So I don't think they're disrespecting you by that.
So you want to know what the sharps feel, KW?
Oh, I would love to hear where the dumb money is, and then.
Well, I don't know where the dumb money is, but I can tell you what there is a consensus amongst the Vegas sharps that if you are playing the money line, that even having just straight winner, even having to lay minus 200, Seattle's the play. But Patriots plus the points is the play against the spread, which means the sharp money thinks this is basically a Seattle 3 or 4 point win, and so they think the spread's a touch too big.
I'm surprised that hasn't come down.
Well, I don't know. That's maybe a longer discussion for your highly rated podcast, which is moving the line on Super Bowls is a very dangerous thing to do, to where books can get middled and they move it to 3.5. It ends up Patriots or Seattle wins by 4, and then they lose the early money and the late money. That happened famously one Super Bowl, but doesn't matter. Again, it's for your podcast. Here is why I disagree with the Vegas sharps, and I disagree with you, because I'm assuming you think it's too big of a line.
Seems large.
Young quarterbacks and first-time playing Mike Macdonald quarterback, or young quarterbacks against Mike Macdonald's defenses have done terribly, and all quarterbacks the first time playing Mike Macdonald's defenses have done very poorly. So quarterbacks 25 or under 25, I should say, against Macdonald's Seahawks. They're 1-9. They have a 68 rating. They score less than 16 points per game. 7 touchdowns, 12 picks. Now, again, most young quarterbacks are not as good as Drake May, and so I understand that, but it is.
But there was, I forgot who was saying it, but there was an idea that Stafford is the outlier just because he's seen it.
You've seen him so many times, and you know what I mean? Twice
but
last
even
year.
His first time this year.
First time this year, and his first time this year was his third time going against him because he played him in the division. And then this is all quarterbacks against Mike Macdonald defenses, including his 2 years with the Ravens. So when Mike Macdonald's called your defense, all quarterbacks in their first time against it. 39 touchdowns, 40 picks, 65 rating, again, right around 16 points per game, and a passer rating under 80. Like, that is spooky if you're a Patriots team that I believe, KW, the strength is their passing game.
Yes, matters of this nature are tremendously captivating to me. And quite thrilling if you are a Seattle Seahawks supporter. I am consistently the individual who promotes this narrative extensively concerning these formidable defensive coaches confronting young quarterbacks. And I discuss this commonly throughout the season when you are facing a team. You know, if you possess a formidable defense, if you possess a formidable quarterback, if you possess a formidable defense, and you are confronting a young, emerging quarterback, whether it is a Caleb, a Drake, a Jaden, whomever, and I am perpetually like, listen, you know, I establish this benchmark where I state, you possess an excellent coach, you possess an excellent defense. If that is the circumstance, I disregard how exceptionally so-and-so has been performing. Like you discover a method to halt it. That is such a hallmark of an excellent defense, and an excellent defensive coach particularly. We observe this across the years with these excellent coaches perpetually. They demonstrate to us their records and their performance against rookie quarterbacks, you know, first-year starters, however they desire to, you know, officially delineate that boundary. And this is distinctly what Mike Macdonald possesses. And it is amusing because I never genuinely perceived the Seahawks through that perspective in terms of when confronting, say, Drake May. Like I never genuinely drew that correlation, which is somewhat peculiar because it is a correlation that what I just expressed earlier, I draw constantly. I mention it honestly perpetually. And I underscore that when an excellent quarterback, a young quarterback, first year, second year, whatever, confronts an excellent defense. And if they perform admirably, like I emphasize it substantially. And frequently I even formulate win-win scenarios for myself. That is where I state, if you perform exceptionally, then I get to commend you. If you do not, I proceed, well, listen, this was your initial occasion confronting, so-and-so. You are anticipated to encounter difficulties in these situations, as we observe with these types of matters, this is not necessarily exclusive to Macdonald. This is more exclusive to genuinely excellent defensive coaches, of which Macdonald is a member. Therefore, we possess other excellent defensive coaches who have had comparable experiences to this. So this is merely a phenomenon that exists within the NFL when you are an excellent coach, excellent, defense, etc. And the other significant aspect, though, to trace the line through this is that to me, there will also be a degree of separation when you additionally possess an excellent coach for the quarterback. Presently, it is not merely a young quarterback. Do you also possess an exceptional young or not young, but an exceptional offensive coach? And so Drake May does possess that with Josh McDaniels. Therefore, it is not a scenario where this is merely, confronting Caleb Williams with Eberflus or something. It is going to be a distinction because the coach will be capable of stating, hey, Drake, this is what they are aiming to accomplish. This is what they execute, etc., etc. I comprehend how to troubleshoot any of these complications, any of the problems that you are apparently encountering in the initial half. You are being deceived, you are becoming perplexed, you are being accelerated. I am an experienced coordinator. I am an experienced coach. I understand what to communicate to you. I comprehend how to assist you. I understand which plays to call. That is merely in terms of within the contest, not to mention entering the contest, strategizing and whatnot. Thus, it is intriguing, though. This is certainly not insignificant by any interpretation of the imagination. Like, this is beyond a shadow of a doubt certainly something. But this is also unique because it is the Super Bowl already somewhat renders it utterly extraordinary. You possess 2 weeks of preparation, already is utterly extraordinary and distinct from anything else you encounter in the NFL outside of said Super Bowl. Therefore, this is not like a routine Week 9 matchup, correct? Because you are also granting a couple weeks now to the coaching staff to aid support Drake May, not to mention merely Drake May now obtain additional time to prepare as well. So it is not something that I am personally going to, weigh heavily towards how I forecast or what my anticipations are for a contest such as this, which again is somewhat intriguing to me because it is something that I do heavily weigh when discussing these contests during the regular season. But I suppose honestly now that I contemplate it, the postseason, I do not ever genuinely factor that. I do not factor in the youth that substantially. Especially when we are like, well, you are in the postseason. Like you are in the postseason. And I have articulated this frequently as well, that like to me, Drake May has also advanced from like the entire young quarterback facet of confronting formidable defenses and or overwhelming inferior teams, where I now commemorate it, where if you are a young quarterback and you overwhelm an inferior team, I still believe there is ample to commemorate and emphasize. But when you advance from that and you produce astonishing statistics against an inferior team, I state, well, I anticipate you to. You have advanced from that tier. Unless you are executing individually fairly exceptional actions that I can merely indicate and state, this was an incredible play. Regardless of whom you are competing against, formidable defense, terrible defense, excellent team, terrible team, the in isolation, the actual performance you are producing is fairly exceptional. You are not merely passing to uncovered receivers all day, which Drake May has accomplished in terms of impressed me even in confronting inferior teams. And so this is thought-provoking. I will articulate this I do discover this genuinely thought-provoking And naturally, Stafford is going to be an anomaly because he is also combined with McVay. And Stafford is the definition of a seasoned veteran. And he is an elite quarterback. He is genuinely exceptional. And not only is he exceptional because Drake May, exceptional. And it is like, yes, but like Matthew Stafford is refined at this juncture, correct? And so is Sean McVay. So them together is going to be a powerhouse, especially when you merge it with Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, an elite rushing attack, an elite offensive line, etc., etc. So Stafford will perpetually be better poised and be better positioned to proceed to achieve success against a formidable team and a formidable defense. And it is intriguing because if you observe how Drake May and this Patriots squad has fared against 3 formidable defenses, it has not been attractive. It has not been exceptional. It has been unpolished around the peripheries. And again, I continue indicating the offense, not Drake May. Everybody desires to concentrate specifically on Drake May here. And I suppose that simply has not been the perspective that I have been perceiving this contest through. But what I had expressed, though, is that we typically do not observe quarterbacks excel. Young quarterbacks excel in the Super Bowl. You do not 100% observe it. There are definitely occurrences of it transpiring, without doubt. But even when we discuss some of these genuinely exceptional quarterbacks like a Patrick Mahomes, like his initial Super Bowl was hardly merely him demonstrating to the world genuinely how exceptional he is from commencement to conclusion. That is simply not what transpired in that contest. Joe Burrow hardly accomplished that. And then the subsequent, Super Bowl victory was Patrick Mahomes versus, who was it? No, not where his subsequent victory, but it was then against, Tom Brady, where he then gets overwhelmed. Therefore, you do not even get to perceive that excellence. And then the nearest you attain to that was then in 2022. And now that was Jalen Hurts being a young quarterback, and he did excel and perform unbelievably, but it evidently still was not adequate. Brock Purdy, young emerging quarterback, performed admirably in that Super Bowl, distinctly did not ignite it on fire. And then, we are back to Mahomes and Jalen again, but I imply Goff was hardly exceptional. I imply you somewhat have to continue regressing in time. Cam was not. And again, I do not even comprehend how if he was necessarily considered young at that juncture. What was it, 2015? I suppose he probably was young. He was definitely performing at his optimum, evidently MVP and all of that. But it is simply not the norm to observe these young emerging quarterbacks leap into a Super Bowl and merely dominate, merely to genuinely demonstrate to the world why they are exceptional, why they are astonishing, why they are, so elite. I imply, honestly, Jalen Hurts shattered a multitude of records and intriguing, peculiar records like first downs and whatnot, and rushing yards. Like even his rushing yard, his rushing shattered the records. And it was like, what was it, like 83 yards or something? Like, it is not like it was 110. Like, it was not anything like mind numbing. Like if someone declared, Jalen shattered the record for rushing, yards, you're like, oh, what does he have? Like, what did he possess? Like 110 or something? And it is like, no, it was, I believe it was in the 80s or the 70s, which is in the contemporary NFL does not feel that insane, quite honestly. Then he accomplished it again in another Super Bowl. Therefore, it is fascinating to me that historically we are not observing these quarterbacks. Absolutely. I imply like the last genuine reciprocal like unleashing of like this is simply unbelievable quarterback performance and fairly flawless was Tom Brady versus Nick Foles. I imply if we are genuinely being honest, like the genuine reciprocal of like we are merely observing elite offenses engaging directly with elite quarterback performance. I imply you simply typically do not observe it. Either a contest becomes somewhat one-sided, and then at that juncture, once a contest becomes so one-sided, you are merely like, okay, well, somewhat all wagers are off here, but like, we have observed and state not to declare. We have not observed exceptional quarterback performance, even Jalen Hurts in 2024. Again, Patrick Mahomes, and even in 2023. But it is simply not genuinely the norm where you are genuinely merely like, wow, this was through the roof. Unbelievable, like the contest that we just observed with the Seahawks versus the Rams. That is, again, my memory is accurate. The last occasion we genuinely observed a contest like that, genuinely, was the Eagles versus the Patriots. I imply even though Tom Brady had an unbelievable resurgence in, what was that, 2016, I believe, which was even before then that Super Bowl because the other Super Bowl, the Eagles Super Bowl, was 2017. Then in 2018, it was going to be, then I believe it was the Patriots, and that was with Jared Goff. What was that, 13-10 or whatever, you know? So, like, it is simply not the norm. And then once we commence to regress too far, I do not know. Then we commence to somewhat enter where football was merely distinct. It was merely performed distinct. The regulations were distinct. 2013, 2012, 2011, 10. Like, honestly, football was merely distinct. Distinct defenses, distinct offenses, distinct tier of coaching, distinct style of quarterback performance. And even then, I merely do not believe genuinely there are many, illustrations of merely a young, emerging Drake May style quarterback at this age leaping into a Super Bowl against an elite defense and merely directly excelling. You simply do not observe it. You simply do not observe it. So, that is another aspect that bodes incredibly favorably with the Seattle Seahawks and what they are confronting. Presently, the one aspect is regarding a Drake May, though in this predicament is the reality that we observed. He did acquire the experience of having 3 postseason contests, all in utterly distinct environments at home, on the road, inclement weather, snow, rain, wind. So, like, in a manner, he has acquired, this is not one of those circumstances where it has somewhat been like an effortless postseason progression for him in terms of him individually, where he has merely been capable of somewhat coast. Because even though, the defense has been performing exceptionally, and the offenses that they have been confronting has hardly been exceptional, he himself is still being overwhelmed. He himself is still being, struck. He still requires to generate plays. Like, it is not like this has merely been, 100% smooth sailing. And I would argue that benefits him. It is almost more advantageous that he has had the contests that he has had rather than him passing for 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, no fumbles, and it has merely been smooth sailing where he defeats, a team 42-7. It is why, honestly, Sam Darnold confronting the 49ers and demolishing them in the postseason, and they were like, okay, well, what does that signify entering this contest against the Los Angeles Rams? And I was like, nothing. I was like, nothing. That contest was blown open so rapidly and effortlessly. I state that is nothing at that, that contest signified nothing to me in terms of how to forecast Sam Darnold's performance. I comprehended more from Sam Darnold confronting the 49ers in the regular season contest than the postseason, and merely the Seahawks as a whole. Overwhelming victories only signify so much to me, particularly when you cross the threshold of an adequately proficient team and an adequately exceptional team. You overwhelm inferior teams, or merely overwhelm, or merely a contest merely becomes out of control, merely because of. That is the manner how football can function. I am merely like it simply. It simply signifies very little to me. I comprehend significantly more the Seahawks confronting the Rams in that NFC Championship contest because of how the contest evolved, because of the reciprocal nature necessitating every participant. Your kicker, your punter, your offensive line, your rushing attack, your coaching staff, like everybody needed to be concentrated in such a hyper-specific manner. And that is something that even though the contests have hardly been flawless or attractive for the Patriots, they have been undergoing those types of moments to a degree. And so that does bode favorably for them and does count to me considerably more heavily experienced than him merely performing exceptionally. Therefore, in a sufficiently peculiar manner, you would almost somewhat feel more optimistic about the Patriots, considering how matters have evolved for them. Whereas, correct if the Seahawks concluded overwhelming the Rams, albeit the Rams are evidently a highly esteemed team, but if they triumphed in a comparable manner that they triumphed against the 49ers, I would still proceed. I would proceed into this Super Bowl now stating, I still have not observed sufficient from Sam. I still do not comprehend how much I can rely on him. If the contest is close, can I rely on him to execute the correct play, the correct pass? Do I rely on Clint Kubiak to devise the correct play? Like I would be uneasy. Honestly, I would be uneasy. And, that is why experience matters so substantially. And experience entering the Super Bowl, in numerous manners is everything. In numerous manners is everything. That Philadelphia Eagles squad in 2024 was infinitely more prepared than they were in 2022. And it is simply, they were so concentrated and so locked in, like every single individual comprehended the assignment in 2024. They performed exceptionally in 2022, but you could merely perceive that there was merely a focus and a comprehension. And it simply matters. And evidently we cannot necessarily attain that with these two teams, but in terms of the type of performance that may be required. This is two battle-tested teams in that regard. They do possess that experience presently and in significant, meaningful postseason contests, not regular season contests, correct? I disregard what transpired in Week 7 at this juncture. That signifies absolutely nothing to me. Genuinely nothing to me. But what you just accomplished over these last couple of weeks in the postseason practically signifies everything to me. Thus, it is intriguing. But those are merely my reflections. I would absolutely adore to hear yours. What do you all contemplate regarding the Seattle Seahawks and the entire notion that their defense and Mike Macdonald are established to overwhelm a young quarterback in his initial start ever against Mike Macdonald? Inform me of your reflections. I read each and every comment, so whether you concur with me or dispute with me, either way, let us engage in some discussions. Let us engage in some debates. But ultimately, let us merely derive some enjoyment. And please do contemplate subscribing. We are constructing an amazing community here, and absolutely adore to observe a part of it. I desire to construct something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we are genuinely enthusiastic to be part of. I believe we are well on our path to accomplishing it. Please do not neglect to award this video a thumbs up, as it genuinely assists the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so profoundly. I will see you next time.